Throughout my life, music has meant a great deal to me.
1 minute ago, something happened that no one in Britain ever expected to see. Prime Minister Keir Starmer has just been publicly humiliated by King Charles III. What began as a quiet disagreement behind palace doors has exploded into a full-blown constitutional crisis. One shaking the very core of British democracy. The monarchy has drawn a line, the Prime Minister has crossed it, and now the nation stands on the edge of chaos. Stay with me, because what I'm about to reveal will change how you see the balance of power in Britain forever. It started less than 24 hours ago inside Buckingham Palace during what was supposed to be a routine briefing between the Crown and the Prime Minister. Witnesses say the atmosphere turned icy the moment Starmer entered the room, and King Charles, normally calm and composed, was visibly stern. On the table lay a folder marked Confidential Constitutional Conduct. According to insiders, it contained a transcript of Starmer's recent remarks, the same words that sparked outrage across the country, where he claimed the monarchy serves Parliament, not the other way around. The king had read every word, and this time he wasn't staying silent. Reports suggest the monarch looked Starmer directly in the eye and said, "You have forgotten that respect sustains this nation. Power without respect is not leadership, it is arrogance." Those in the room say Starmer's face drained of colour. The silence that followed was suffocating. For the first time in modern British history, a reigning monarch had openly rebuked a sitting Prime Minister. Within minutes, word of the confrontation began leaking through palace corridors. The Prime Minister had been called out not by the opposition, not by the press, but by the King himself. By the time Starmer left the palace gates, the reporters could already sense something seismic had happened. His car sped past flashing cameras, his expression tight, his jaw locked. He refused to answer a single question. But just an hour later, a palace statement dropped like a thunderclap. It read simply, "His Majesty believes that all branches of government must act with respect toward the institutions that bind this nation together." That was it. No names, no direct attack. But everyone understood the message. The king had spoken, and the entire country knew exactly who he was speaking to. Within minutes, headlines exploded across Britain. King Charles delivers silent blow to star. Monarch breaks tradition, warns against political arrogance. Social media went into meltdown. Hashtags like Crown vs Commons and Starmer humiliated rocketed to the top of every trending list. But it didn't end there. Inside Parliament, MPs were in uproar. Some Labour members demanded Starmer apologise publicly to the King to save what little credibility he had left. Others accused the palace of overstepping its role. The tension was electric. Veteran politicians whispered that they hadn't seen a standoff like this in their lifetime. One senior Labour figure reportedly told colleagues, "If the King moves against us, the people will follow him, not Starmer." And it's already happening. Polls taken just hours after the palace statement show public support for the monarchy soaring to record highs. Meanwhile, Starmer's approval rating has collapsed into free fall. 67% of voters now say he's lost control, and nearly half believe he should resign immediately. Even some within his own cabinet are distancing themselves. Chancellor Rachel Reeves was asked if she supported Starmer's handling of the crisis. Her answer, a single word, no comment. Meanwhile, the King's quiet composure is being hailed as masterful. Constitutional experts are calling it a textbook act of royal restraint. By saying so little, he has said everything. Every moment of silence from Buckingham Palace makes Star MA look smaller, angrier, and more unstable. The monarch appears dignified, the Prime Minister desperate. As one insider from the palace put it bluntly, the King didn't need to raise his voice. He let the country do that for him. The political earthquake is only beginning. The streets outside Parliament are already filling with royal supporters, waving Union Jacks and chanting, "Defend the Crown." And across the world, news anchors are asking the same question. Has Britain's Prime Minister just provoked the end of his own government? The humiliation is complete, but the fallout, that's only just beginning. By dawn the next morning, Westminster was no longer a seat of government. It was a battlefield. The corridors buzzed with fear, anger and disbelief as word spread that King Charles had refused to grant the Prime Minister his usual weekly audience. A royal aide speaking to one of the major networks described the move as an extraordinary step reserved for extraordinary circumstances. To deny a sitting Prime Minister an audience was a message so clear it didn't need words. The King no longer trusted the man running his government. Within hours, the shockwaves hit every corner of British politics. Labour's internal messaging channels were in chaos. Ministers demanded answers. Some urged calm, insisting Starmer should seek reconciliation with the palace immediately. Others argued he had no choice but to stand his ground to prove Parliament's supremacy. But even in those frantic conversations, one truth was obvious. He had lost control of his party, his narrative, and now his authority. At 9 a.m, cameras caught Starmer leaving number 10, surrounded by aides, whispering and gesturing frantically. He was scheduled to make a statement on constitutional clarity, but the moment he reached the lectern, it was clear something had broken inside him. His tone was tense, clipped, defensive. In this country, he declared, the government answers to Parliament, not to inherited privilege. I will not be lectured on democracy by any institution, no matter how ancient. The crowd gasped. The comment hit headlines before the sentence had even finished leaving his mouth. What was meant to be a show of resolve became another act of defiance, and this time the British people had had enough. Within minutes, major outlets cut to constitutional scholars and royal commentators, all saying the same thing. The Prime Minister had just crossed a line that no leader could survive. Sky News called it a self-inflicted political implosion. The Guardian described it as the speech that may end a career. BBC presenters, usually cautious, struggled to hide their astonishment. On social media, the backlash was instant and brutal. Memes of Starmer standing before a Union Jack split down the middle flooded timelines. Hashtags like Respect the Crown and Starmer Out climbed to the top of trending charts. Even Labour supporters who had defended him days earlier began to waver. One viral post read simply, "He's not fighting for democracy. He's fighting his own ego." Then came the leak that changed everything. Late in the afternoon, documents surfaced, memos from inside Downing Street, allegedly showing that Starmer's team had planned to modernise royal protocol by reducing the King's role in certain constitutional processes. The proposal, still in draft form, suggested limiting the monarch's discretion in the appointment of ministers and stripping back traditional briefings. It was a bureaucratic reform on paper, but in the public's imagination, it looked like a coup. Opposition parties seized on it instantly. Conservative leader Ken Barden called it the most dangerous assault on our constitutional monarchy in living memory. Nigel Farage went even further, accusing Starmer of trying to silence the throne and rewrite the very idea of Britain. By nightfall, thousands gathered outside Buckingham Palace, chanting and waving flags under the cold November sky. They say the crowd grew by the hour. Ordinary citizens, pensioners, students, families, all united by one message: defend the crown. Police struggled to manage the swelling numbers as the chants grew louder, echoing through the capital. In Manchester, Liverpool and Glasgow, similar demonstrations erupted spontaneously. Britain hadn't seen royalist rallies of this scale since the Queen's coronation. It was no longer a political issue. It was emotional. It was personal. Inside number 10, panic turned to despair. Senior advisers urged Starmer to step back, to issue an apology, even a token gesture of respect that could calm the fury. But he refused. One insider later told the press he was furious, pacing the floor, saying he wouldn't bow to theatrics. He thought he could outlast the outrage. What he didn't realise was that the outrage had already turned into revolt. Late that night, Transport Secretary Louise Hay resigned live on television, saying she could not serve a government that undermines the dignity of the Crown. Hours later, 3 junior ministers followed her lead. By morning, the resignations reached 10 Labour's WhatsApp groups, filled with talk of an emergency leadership challenge. Angela Rayner's name appeared again and again. Meanwhile, King Charles remained utterly silent, continuing his public duties as if nothing had happened. Meeting veterans, opening charities, attending services, his calmness only deepened the Prime Minister's humiliation. Newspapers across the world ran the same headline in different languages. The king who said nothing and won everything. International reactions poured in. Australia's Prime Minister called the king a symbol of stability in turbulent times. Canada's press praised his restraint. Even the White House, usually cautious on royal matters, issued a statement emphasising deep respect for the British Crown as an enduring institution of democracy. For Starr, it was a diplomatic nightmare. Allies who once admired him now saw a leader at war with his own heritage. By the end of the week, an emergency poll confirmed what everyone already knew: collapse.